Hello, and welcome to another episode of the OMNIA Performance Podcast. Today, I am joined by our new head of triathlon, Craig Maben. And Craig and I have known each other for many, many years, and in fact have spent a lot of time triathlon training together before Craig moved over to Australia about a year and a half ago. So this is as much a catch-up amongst old friends as it is an introduction to who he is, his training background, and a bit of chit-chat between us. We're going to split what was a very long podcast recording into 2 episodes, and this is going to be part 1. So welcome to what is effectively going to be a reflection on 10 years of training for both of us. We talk about training history, a couple of unpopular opinions, a bit of a breakdown of a couple of the more challenging experiences we've been through together, training for similar things, and get to know Craig a little bit a bit better. More about his training history, more about what direction he's going in next, and that will tee up nicely for part 2, which will follow next week. So without any further ado, let's touch base with Craig. Craig, welcome.
Thank you.
This is the first time we've done this. And we could have easily done this many years ago in person, but we're instead doing it whilst I'm in Spain and you're in Australia.
Yeah, of all the places that we've been, we're probably the furthest apart we could possibly be, and we've ever been from each other. We've lived in the same city for many years.
Most of our lives, done a lot of similar events at similar times, and here we are. So, look, at least the technology allows us to do this, and
at least neither of us are in Scotland either. So that's.
I'd say so. Yeah, it's turning around. I think there were some sunny days recently. I mean, I'm back tomorrow, so I shouldn't be too smug. You're on the Gold Coast.
I've not been back for coming up for a year and a half. So.
Year and a half in Australia.
Yeah, well, 2 years, but a year and a half this time.
So we're going to talk about training history, how we connected, all that sort of stuff in detail. But just initially, how different is your experience training in Australia versus in Scotland? I, in my head, can imagine what the key differences are, but you've lived through it, having committed hard to training in Scotland as well as Australia.
Yeah. So there's a lot less time on the turbo, which is good. But I've still got a turbo. It's actually the opposite problem in that, like, the reason I need to go in the turbo here is it's too hot.
Okay.
Like, you know, but it's like, oh,
boo-hoo.
I know, but it's like, if I don't get my session done at 5 a.m. outside, it's just like, or I want to do a heat-specific session, it's like 32 degrees, 90% humidity some days, and it's just like, you're not going to be able to get a decent session done. So it's like almost the opposite problem, but it happens less. And I've lived in Sydney, and I've now moved to Gold Coast. Sydney, surprisingly, the weather there wasn't actually like that great. I think a lot of people kind of, they post the good days on social media, and the days that it's raining or overcast or a bit colder, those are not the days that you see, and it gives this illusion that Sydney is this, tropical paradise 365 days a year. Gold Coast is closer to that, and so training here is a lot more steady. Like, you can pretty much know, like, if we arrange a long ride, I mean, you'll know for our long rides in Edinburgh, it's like, hey, should we ride on Saturday? And it's always, yeah, weather depending. So,
how long is long and what time on Saturday? Yeah.
But, and then you wake up and you look out the window and you're like, oh, that's not what the forecast said. I'll set the turbo up. And so there's less of that here. And the weather is a lot more like consistent. So if it's like bad weather, it'll be bad for 3 days. Kind of like, and bad is like, oh, it's raining a bit and whatever.
Yeah, you've got too comfortable. You've got too comfortable by the sounds of things.
It's not like amazing like every single day, but like, yeah, training is easier. And
community-wise, seems to be very engaged, and a lot of people are doing exciting things.
Yeah, so finding like-minded people is a lot easier. Obviously, I've not been at home now for a couple of years, so I don't know how much that's grown. But like, obviously, we trained together, a decent bit in Edinburgh, and we had a couple of other people that we would train with, but there wasn't huge like groups, whereas here you'd like struggle to not find a group to train with. Like, if you want to do just a swim squad, there's loads of or cycle clubs or run clubs. I think there's run clubs everywhere now, but and like all abilities, you can just like find people. There's chats that I'm in that I could put, hey guys, I'm riding tomorrow. The only thing that I'm still getting used to over here is that people just go stupid clock in the morning. Like, they train. Like, there was one ride that the guys met at 3 a.m. to go for a ride.
Was that weekday? On a school morning?
It was weekend.
Was that because of the heat, or just because they could
So
be the guys that?
they were doing a big ride, and they wanted to like beat the heat. And I think some of them have lives outside of training, which I don't. So they needed to get they needed to get back. I'm like, this is my highlight of the day. So like, I don't want to get up at 2:30, but
That is wild. That is wild.
I actually didn't. Full disclosure, I didn't meet them at 3. I woke up a bit later, drove, intercepted them so that I could have a bit longer.
You're a
I
phony.
didn't want to do 200k.
But you'll have appeared in the Strava ride. It'll have been Craig and 13 others.
It wasn't high enough percentage, obviously. I didn't get joined in the group.
Okay, so you're not a fraud. You're not a fraud. Fair enough. Good training ride, and the smug.
I still did 130k.
How big was the ride that warranted the 3 a.m. start?
They did 200k.
Okay, it's
so
a big
from
ride.
So from Gold Coast to Brisbane and back is basically spot on.
Cool.
200K.
Okay, that's the other thing as well. I think is I've only ever been Gold Coast or higher in Australia. I've never done Sydney or Melbourne or anything. But my interpretation of all of Australia in terms of training environments, from what I've seen, you've got a really good mix of all the pool facilities are world class, public facilities amazing, really really good, tracks really accessible, but you've got a perfect mix of flat and rolling, and if you go a little bit inland, you've got hills as well, which means you've kind of got access to pretty much everything you'd need.
So yeah, Sydney, I found that in terms of like training environment, like not so good to access like really good cycling roads that easily. So like for example, you would have to kind of ride from where I lived and where most people live is like the eastern suburbs, and so to get to the decent roads you're about 35k. Okay. So as in like you're riding through the city pretty much for, let's call it 30k, so 60k out and back. So any ride that you do needs to be, at least 90 to get 30k on decent roads. Or you can obviously drive to that point, but as you know, like that just adds so much time to your sessions. If you drive to go and do a 4-hour cycle and then drive back, that's like your whole day.
Yeah. I've been doing that the past week, and it has added up a lot. But look, we've done the hard yards in Edinburgh. We've done the out the front door rides. We've done the drive to the northwest of Scotland to do the simulation rides. We've done it all. So I'm pleased to hear that you've got access to this wonderful environment on the other side of the world, and you're comparing and contrasting it in a way that Craig of 3-4 years ago would have gone, this is much more convenient than spending 3 hours on the turbo every day.
Yeah, and it's also like new, like I've obviously grew up, I only ever lived in, like I realised before I moved here, I'd only lived in like a 10-mile radius, like my whole life, so yeah. Obviously I'm just so familiar with so everything here's new. I'm like, there's this like new route I can cycle, and like obviously part of it is that as well. But yeah, don't get me wrong, it's not like there's probably better, well in fact I was going to say there's probably better training environments. However, Matt Hauser lives here, Jelle Geens lives here, like current world champions at different distances. Alex Yee's here at the moment, Christian Blumenfeld was here the other day, so it's like obviously quite a good place to be. Training wise, otherwise these guys wouldn't live here. So yeah, it's pretty sick, can't lie.
Nice, very exciting. Well, that 10-mile radius, you spent a lot of time doing different sports out from within it, predominantly rowing growing up, wasn't it? Yeah. So big engine. Rowing's a pretty antisocial sport. Rowing and swimming are the two that I've always understood as like miserable parents, miserable children, but they feel like they're accomplishing something together, which is nice. Miserable in the sense of everybody's up early for a lot of commitment.
I think my mum was probably miserable raising me as well, but that's a separate story. I wouldn't say it as, like, I know what you're saying about the swimming, like it's just a grind. Like there's those swim squad kids who are like, coming into class and they've already done a 4k swim and then they're going. Rowing's not as bad as that, and obviously you're in the boat together, so
true.
I didn't find it like super unsociable in that aspect. What I did find, like the biggest thing, obviously growing up in Edinburgh, so I did rowing from 12, like beginner, and then like we started competing at like, let's say, under 14s, and the competition in Scotland just isn't good, and that's just a fact. Like
it's access, I think, really, isn't it? You kind of only got a few places you can really do it. It's a bit of like a elite sport in that sense that like in terms of access, like you can't just hop in a boat. Like the boats are expensive. You need a bit of water to row on, safety, etc. So basically, if you can row at 14 years old in Scotland, you can probably become Scottish champion, But what that meant was you're really selling your abilities here, Craig. Well done. Hey,
yeah. I mean, just being honest. And like the lucky thing for us was there was 4 of us, like me and 3 others, that were all quite tall essentially, and therefore just able to take up rowing quite easily. And so we raced in a 4 boat, and so there was maybe some other individuals that were maybe on our level, but for them to find 3 mates and try and beat us, it was just impossible, because they just were from Aberdeen or Inverness or whatever. So what that meant was that from essentially 14, I was traveling down south to race pretty much through the summer, through once the season. I mean, we raced all year, really, did we? I think, yeah, we actually had our break in summer. So basically all year, Friday we used to get allowed to leave school early, to jump on the minibus, to drive to typically Nottingham, which, the exact same place where Outlaw is.
Yeah.
Which is funny in my
Home
life.
Pierpont, isn't it? Yeah.
And
That is funny, yeah.
I've got a really fun fact for you there. So that location was meant to be Nottingham's new airport. This is the story I got told. Someone can fact check me on this. That was meant to be Nottingham's new airport back in whatever year. And they decided to not build an airport there because it was too windy. And so instead they built a rowing lake there.
That sounds like council logic to me.
That does indeed. And also, to then fast forward to when I was 16 years old, because we were like a smaller school, we had like an 8 in rowing is like the like top kind of like, especially at schoolboy, it's like schoolboy 8s. It's like you're racing like Eton and like all of these kind of like prestigious schools. We had a chance when I was under 16. We had some boys that were under 18, and so we amalgamated this kind of like 8 to race, because Watson's historically never raced in the 8s, and we had this one chance at national schools when I was under 16. Went down home Pierpont, weather was bad, it got changed from side-by-side racing to a time trial, and it was just, there was no heats, semis or finals, it was just going to be a singles time trial, best man wins. It started, we got about 3/4 of the way down the course, and the marshal's like, blowing his whistle, flagging us down, race is cancelled, the conditions were terrible. A boat had capsized, or like sank, and there was another one that was like half sank. It was like carnage, and that was our one and only chance to like maybe get a medal, like get on the podium, because we just had this, like, we had the guys who were under 18 and then us 4 who were under 16, and like together we were like, and then the next year they were gone, and it was like us and the younger guys, and we just didn't have the numbers for it. So our one and only chance was scuppered by the wind at the what we.
At least you got to recce the area for any future outlaw triathlons. At least,
yeah. I mean, fast forward, what would it be like? 15 years later, I'm swimming in there. Which,
yeah.
When I used to,
which isn't actually that nice an experience either.
Definitely not. When I used to row there, the last thing you want to do is capsize. But yeah, just to go back to that, yeah, it meant that like every weekend basically we were away, and so in terms of antisocial, 100% felt that, and that's why I kind of probably stopped in the end, because I got to 17, started getting into like the GB camps for like, you've got potential. I would go, they would kind of be telling me, your height, I'm 6'3", and they'd be like, you're kind of borderline, bit short. I was like, okay. And then they're looking at all my numbers, like you would do a 2K erg test, and like, I don't think they did VO2 max testing, but they definitely did, like, we did lactate testing and stuff like that. And I was basically told in not so many words, maybe, you're a maybe for Olympics in like 10 years. Like, if you really dedicate yourself, you would be like a maybe. And I was at this point 17. All my friends are starting to, have house parties that I'm not able to attend because I'm away every weekend. And it was that point where I was like, I've already been doing this for however many years at quite like a high level for that age. Like, there was quite a lot of pressure all the time. Like, we were expected to win.
Yeah.
And so I just ended up making the decision at that time to go away from that, and just essentially giving it up entirely. Which, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think it was the wrong decision. I do sometimes think, like, I wish I'd just like, if I could have my mindset now would want me to just
But that's probably all part of the learning process, isn't it? I mean, transferable skills from rowing, aerobic capacity, 1, 2, miserable weekends of long training volume and just getting your head down and doing the hard yards, 2, weather in Scotland, character building stuff, 3, and probably actually going through the evolution of hitting a wall with a sport that you maybe hadn't been as in touch with as when you first started, and thinking, okay, what direction I go from here, which is kind of what led you to triathlon in the first place a few years later as well, isn't it? So again, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah,
and I think
it's one of those things. It's like whether it's in your personal life or anything. It's like, oh, if I'd known this back then, or I can't believe I thought I was like fully mature then and making sensible decisions, and you look back, you're like, I was such an idiot. But yeah, just on that, like one of the guys that I rode with, Callum, he's taller than me, was always like better than me. Like I'd maybe sometimes be able to beat him here and there if I got lucky, or if I had a good day or a bad day. He's always better than me, like, just. And he did that whole thing, went to uni, got the scholarship, went into Team GB, got selected, I believe this is how it went, got selected for Tokyo 2020 as he was basically the last guy in the squad. Obviously, with everything that happened, that Olympics got postponed, the GB rowing team decided to reselect the following year. He then missed out by one, and then he just went, fuck it, like I'm not doing another 4 years.
But he gave it a good crack, didn't he? I think, yeah.
I've actually, you'll maybe hear this, or I maybe need to reach out to him. I've just always been interested to ask how he feels about that, because obviously we're like the two opposite stories of the same, like, it's like I was like nah, and he's like, I went for it, and not that the end outcome was the same, even though very different, and he lived as like a professional athlete for, after he got out of uni and stuff, he was like in the GB squad and like living as a professional athlete essentially. So I'd be interested to hear his side of it, because
I mean, it's very circumstantial.
My story, and like how would I have felt about that? I was like, I nearly gave up when I was 17, and instead I dedicated another 10 years of my life and missed out by, well, because, for all
circumstances. At the end of the day, circumstances. Yeah. I mean, there's no guarantee of what would happen next. But again, that is a tough pill to swallow. But professional athletes are trained to swallow tough pills, aren't they? So you never know. I would be interested if you connect with Callum. Please let me know what his take is.
Good excuse to catch up with him anyway. I've not spoken to him in years.
So left rowing behind, lived like a Scottish teenager does for a few years, and then decided to get in the gym, get quite large. Yeah. Before entering the world of triathlon.
Yeah, so like to kind of it was kind of like a long process there, I think, because being like back then as I said, I've been the same height since I was like 15, I swear. Like I honestly think I've been 6'3" since I was 15, and then I just stopped. So, but back then I was 70 kilos. So because I remember lightweight in rowing was your average weight had to be 70 in this boat, and the heaviest person could only be 72.5. And I remember I was always like, just as a teenager, like basically like, and this is adult lightweight, by the way, they don't do junior lightweight, but just for reference, like I was 70 kilos, so like I was so skinny.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically
70. Wow.
And so I now sit about 90. I've been as high as like 110. I've been as low recently as 84, which was too lean. That was Keltman, which we'll get into. But yeah, so to summarize, maybe like 10 years from leaving school, I kind of went party phase, the general gym phase, then like bodybuilding phase, then back to the party phase, while kind of like kidding myself that I still go to the gym, but like, just kind of maintaining, and also like slowly getting fat without realizing it. Got to a point where, what year would it be? Like 2017, 18, something around there. Just caught myself in the mirror one day, like at a bad angle, and was like, oh my God. Like my belly was just, and people to this day tell me like, oh, you weren't fat, like blah, blah, blah. Like I was overweight. Like I had a lot of excess body fat around my stomach for sure, which is where I store it all. And just luckily in that moment made the decision like I need to change. And I was like unhappy with like a lot of other things in my life, with my career and all that sort of stuff as well. So there was a lot going on at that time. But yeah, luckily I made the decision to.
What was the first thing you did to enact that change?
It's a good question. I think so as we spoke about just before we started recording, I've got a tattoo on my wrist, Go All In, which is very, like it's almost like not my motto, but it's like my way of being. Like I don't have control of it. It's just I'm all in and I'm also all out. So if I'm doing something, I'm doing it to the extreme, which is sometimes not the best way to be perfectly honest, but it's just the way I am.
Yeah, don't gamble.
I mean, I've gone through a phase with that. It was never bad, but yeah, but it's true. Like, it's true. It's like, oh, I'll just put like a fun little £5 bet on, and then all of a sudden I'm in the casino at 2 a.m. like, I need to win this back, and then I'm like, right, let's not do that. So yeah, I'm either all in or I'm all out, and as I said, like sometimes that's not the best way. So like when I've had jobs in the past, once I decide like I hate this job, I find it very hard to I'll just like stay until I find another one. I was like just like show face, and I'm like, oh, like I'm just once I decide something, it's kind of done. So with that, I decided like, right, I'm going to make a change. I reckon. So my understanding of even like calories and stuff like that was basically nil back then. I kind of knew that food had calories in it, and I didn't understand that fats, proteins, carbs really. So I think like I downloaded MyFitnessPal. I knew what I was doing in the gym. I'd done like a bodybuilding, bulk, a perma-bulk. I used to say that there was like a 2-year period where I used to say, I just want to get so big that people would just be too scared to call me fat. It's like I had no interest in getting shredded at all. I just wanted to get massive. For whatever reason, that was just, I think like Ziz, but obviously he was like,
he was incredibly jacked. Yeah.
The whole thing was aesthetics, but for the way that I interpreted that was, I'm just going to get massive. Don't know why. And then, so I always had from then I had a big frame, but then I kind of slowly trickled into holding a bit of fat. And then, so I knew what I was doing in the gym, so that didn't really take like much to get back into once I made that decision. At the start, from memory, was just doing like typical bro split stuff in the gym, and then was doing the typical like 10 minutes of cardio at the end of my gym workout, or doing like sprints on the treadmill, thinking that it was like burning fat. It's like I'd read something on bodybuilding.com that like
health and fitness magazine. There was the golden era of bro science was strong.
So I was doing all like I was doing all that stuff, and obviously the more that I learned about calories and like calories in versus calories out, and started to see results, and then I was like, oh wait, like this running on the treadmill is burning like more calories than like 10 minutes on that. So my watch says like 10 minutes on the treadmill is like burning more than the whole like weight session. So I was like, oh, this running thing. So I started just like running outside. Like I remember the first run I did was 10k, I think. Pretty sure it was 10. Like I just went and I ran it in. I remember I was working in a job that I travelled for. I was in Inverness, and I had these like gym shoes. They were like Nike something, not running shoes. I went and ran this 10k, struggled through it, got the worst blisters ever. But just used that mentality I had from rowing of like just I can just do hard things. Got through it, and then I was like, oh, this running thing's quite fun. Like after the blisters healed, I was like, oh, I'll go again. I'll get a pair. I spoke to my mate who worked at Nike, and I was like, what are these? And he's like, you ran in those? I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, they're not even gym shoes, they're fashion shoes. And I was like, oh. And so I got a pair of running shoes, which made things a lot easier. And then started getting into running more while still kind of like going to the gym and like maintaining some sort of size and shape. But then very quickly kind of signed up to my first half marathon, and then I would say did my first marathon probably within like a year.
Where was that? That was in Scotland, that one, wasn't it? Was it?
Yeah, my first marathon was it's in Kinloch Rannoch, and it's called Rannoch Marathon or Loch Rannoch Marathon.
Very flat, isn't it?
No, I wouldn't say so.
No,
I mean it's not.
I'm thinking of the Barry Budden half marathon, which is I think sold as like the flattest half marathon in the world.
No, this is like basically Kinloch Rannoch. You basically do a lap of it, and the road, I've cycled around it as well, and the road is just like rolling, I would call it. Like on the bike, I'd describe it as rolling. Running, I would describe it as like hilly.
That's hilly, yeah. Anything rolling on the bike is hilly on your feet. I'd say. I would avoid like the plague personally. It sounds lovely visually, but So the gateway drug.
Yeah.
The gateway drug was a escape from work in Inverness, eh? There you go. You go.
No, well, it was to lose weight on it. Like, to be honest, and like I definitely went through a phase probably where I think I'm very like cautious. I've definitely never had an eating disorder. I would say I've had not even like, but I mean, what would you describe as disordered eating? I feel like almost everyone who counts calories has at some
I
point.
think that there's orthorexia, which is kind of the categorization of it. Orthorexia nervosa, which is, I can't remember the exact clinical definition for it, but it's an obsessive characteristics over certain foods. I.e., you can only eat certain types of food. You demonize foods.
Yeah.
I used to carry a pair of fold out Joseph and Joseph scales in my pocket so I could weigh food from the canteen at school and then at uni, which upon reflection was probably orthorexia behavior. But I know what you mean. Essentially, at what point does counting macros and things cross the precipice?
I think with anything, like when you're learning, like, I mean, for me anyway, it's like, it's same with training. It's like, oh, like I'm doing the training, so I'm going to, you have to do too much to be like, oh, that was too much to kind of like learn. And I think the same with the counting calories stuff. Like I definitely would like not eat certain foods because I just knew how many calories were in it, or like I would go for a run to burn calories because I felt like I'd eaten too much that day and stuff, which like it doesn't seem wrong in your head at the time. You just think, oh, this is like logical, but then you think, oh, that's kind of like an unhealthy relationship with food and or exercise. Like if the only reason I'm going for this run is to like burn off, you know, if I'm going for a run at 8 o'clock at night in the dark in Edinburgh because I just ate like a big chocolate bar and I'd already trained that day, it's like
No, I do agree though. I think there's some of these things, not all obviously because we're on delicate ground here, but I think there is value in learning these things yourself along the way.
The problem with it though as well is that at the initial phase you get rewarded for it.
Yeah. And
I found the same with overtraining, like, which is something we'll come on to probably, but like in the first instance you get rewarded for it. So and also people cheer you on. So like if I post myself overtraining on my Instagram, people will be like, oh, like you're smashing it at the moment. It's like, I'm overtraining, you know? Like, not that anyone else knows that, but like, you know, I'm potentially overtraining. And this is, obviously part of the problem with social media is that nowadays everyone is like pushing against everyone. It's a competition, and it's like...
I think a lot of the things that we just laughed about from 2017, demonizing certain foods, doing interval training as a way of burning fat because it elicits this response, etc., etc. We've kind of gone full circle on a lot of these things as well, which is interesting to see when I'm a big fan of just doing the basics well. We're a big fan of just doing the basics well and doing them consistently and not getting sucked into shiny things, doing too much here, doing too much there. But yeah, you are right. I think it's very difficult to navigate, and I'm very grateful to have made the mistakes and learned from them myself, like you've just described, all those years ago, because it's made me realize, that was too much. Ooh, that wasn't good for my head. Ooh, that affected my relationships. Oh, you know what? Actually, I was doing things for the wrong reason. Because it means it's sort of experience inputs that you can then use to form a bigger picture perspective.
Yeah, this is something I've said with regards to like my coaching is like, I've made the mistake so you don't have to. Like that is my experience. Is like I've almost tried like not everything, but like I've tried a lot of different ways of doing things. I've done a lot of stupid things. I've overtrained. I've undereaten. I've tried to sign up to an event too soon. I've tried something new on race day. I've said one thing and done the other. Like I've made all of these mistakes, and so now I feel I'm in such a like good position to help people because I can see it so early in the people that I coach. I'm like, I've done exactly what you're doing, or like, you've just told me that thing. I used to think like that. I know what you mean when you type that. Like when you type, oh, I was ill on Monday, but I feel totally better now. I'm like, it's Tuesday. That's not like, I know how it goes. Like, cause I've been there, I'm like, oh no, I'm fine. It's like, and this is something no doubt we'll get onto, but it's like, oh, I had a positive COVID test yesterday. Wake up the next day, did another test, negative. Oh, I'm fine then. I'll go for an hour run. Like, as an outsider, like, tell me how that works. But as an insider,
very, very difficult to talk yourself down from that ledge when you're in it, though. Because
because there's two types of people you get when you coach, right? You've got the people that you need to push, and you've got the people that you need to pull.
Yeah.
And like pull back. And I love to coach the people that I need to pull back. I don't get as much fulfillment from people that I have to push, because it's just like, and it's just, you feel like you're just, it's a never-ending battle. Like, come on, like, like clappy.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Look, most people that come to us are people that need pulled 100%. I think that's the key.
That's why I moved away from in-gym PT, because a lot of the in-gym PT clients I was getting, especially as a new PT with no like background to like sell on, I was getting new people, and it's hey, did you do your sessions this week? No. Okay, let's try again better next week. You know, oh hey, I want to get like in a better shape for my holiday in 6 weeks' time. I'm going to Ibiza, blah blah blah. It's like it's push, and at the same time I was getting into running, and then obviously triathlon developed from there. And I took on a few running and triathlon clients, and I was finding like, it's pulling. They're like, hey, can I do more this week? And I'm like, no, chill, like we're doing enough. And I was like, I get so much more enjoyment from pulling people back in a in a controlled setting than, hey, just checking in, have you done your sessions this week? Don't hear back from you for 4 days, see them in the gym, oh no, sorry, messed up again, like went out at the weekend, blah blah blah. And it's just like, yeah, there's a place for coaches with patience that can deal with those sorts of people. Like there's obviously a huge market for that, and you can be very successful. But for me, that would be, I couldn't do that for my career.
No, I mean it's very different challenge, and I think we love working with people. I mean, most people we work with, if not all, other people that need pulled. It is the biggest problem we solve at Omnia is people coming to us believing that to achieve all of the things they want to achieve, they just have to do everything all the time. Yeah. And in reality, that isn't the case. There's an element of realism that needs applied, but there's also an element of you can actually achieve more with less. And I think once those results start to present themselves, that is very interesting. But I do think there's a lot of noise online at the moment as well. Look, maybe I'm contributing to this, but I'm training for something very dumb. That's key. In terms of training volume, that's the key. But there are triathletes, runners doing big volume. One, as professional athletes. Two, with mileage and base mileage being the very in and popular thing at the moment. But also three, the fact that people then feel that they need to emulate that in their own training to be able to make the progress that is in reality several steps higher because of the professional status of this person or whatever it might be. I'm training for a multi-day endurance event across 3 disciplines at a zone 1, zone 2 effort. So you're looking at 20 hours of training a week, 22, 23 hours of training a week. Significantly less than that last week because I cut my hand open and fucked up my whole weekend, which was brilliant. But that's a story for another time. And then, essentially it's how do you understand why the training is being done to the level that it is, and where do you fit into that, not hierarchy, but I guess ring on the ladder.
I think what you're describing, there's a lot going on there. So I think the first thing is what we see on social media is like the 1% of the 1%, And so like, just to give some examples, like David Goggins, Truett Haynes, like these types of people, like just as examples, right? What they're doing, they might just be genetic freaks that they can handle that amount of volume. So that's one thing, right? Because how many David Goggins are there that are just dealing with broken legs or chronic fatigue and like you never heard of them? But they had that same mindset, but their body just couldn't keep up with it. So I think there's that. Then there's also people like, let's use you as an example. Someone might come across your page and be like, oh, you're doing like 10 iron distance triathlons in 10 days. Like, I'm inspired, which is great to do something. But what they don't see is the training history. So it's like they don't, and everyone, and the problem with social media now is like everybody wants something now. Like it's not like, oh hey, like it's like, hey, I did rowing for 5 years, built a huge aerobic base while I was going through like puberty, and my body was like growing. So like, I probably got like extra advantage from that, right? And then I've done 6 years of training to then get myself to a point to be able to do X, Y, or Z thing. And I'm not special. Everyone has done that, but then and then with the running boom that's happened since COVID, which is now transitioning across into triathlon, which is great, hopefully for business for us as triathlon coaches, but for people that are jumping on the bandwagon, let's call it, for want of a better phrase, and they're like, oh, I can do an Ironman in 6 months, and you're like, well,
that has become normalized as well. That's what I think.
It's also rewarded. It's not only become normalized, but it's become rewarded. Day one of doing an Ironman on no training. Day one of running a marathon every day until my legs break. Day one of, it's like, guys, do you remember, like when I was at school, like someone's dad had done a marathon and you'd be like, he's mental.
Yeah.
Like Steve's dad is mental.
I remember my first experience of running post rugby concussions. I tried to fill a void with just as much training as I could, and my approach to running used to be a hard effort 5k on a Thursday and a hard effort 10k hard effort 5k on a Tuesday, hard effort 10k on a Thursday every week, And it was just basically full tilt, full gas. You'll know the area. I did it around Craig Lockett, so it was pretty hilly as well. It was hard work. And my times were pretty much stagnant for about 7 or 8 weeks. And then week 7, I think I tore my calf. And but the whole time I was like, I have no concept of how anyone could ever run a marathon, because I just did not compute, one, the fact that you could run slower.
Like, I was the same.
But it's just, I know what you mean. It literally,
I just had one pace. Like that first 10K that I did, I can go back and check my Strava to confirm, but like I'm pretty sure I ran it at like 5:05, just over 5 pace. Like, which, you know, is like decent. Like that's my easy run pace like now, give or take. But like my first run, but I just had this like, I was just like, okay, just go. Like,
yeah. But again, that is a rite of passage that we all must go through. Is holy shit, wait a minute, I can drop a gear whilst running. This is much more pleasant.
For some people, and me included, it's so hard to do. I found it so hard to fight my ego enough to allow me to, because I don't. It was like this inbuilt thing of just like work, and like to just back off, and I just didn't feel like I was working. I would finish a run and be like I didn't get that like nice. Like obviously you get the endorphins, but you don't. It's not the same as doing a threshold session or a VO2 max bike session. You don't get that same like, oh, that was like tough and I got through that. It was like, oh, that was kind of boring.
Yeah, you've ticked a box, which is
and the battle was in here, not like in here. You know, it's like which I've come to love even more like down the line. But it's, you have to get to this. I mean, as you have as well, or you love to hate it, or like, you know, whatever your individual relationship is with it. But that's a learning curve that everyone needs to go on as well. Is kind of learning to love the mental battle more than the physical battle.
Yeah, that's where I am at the moment. And actually, I have zero conditioning currently to any intensity, which is quite funny. I did a hard effort 1K at the end of a brick the other day. I did a 90k ride. It was actually the Malaga 70.3 route, first year at the end of this year, and it was great. Enjoyed it. 90k ride, 10-mile run off the bike, felt phenomenal. Thought, fuck it, I'm gonna just do a hard effort 1K to see how I feel, and felt great. But as soon as I stopped, I was like, I have felt a huge spike in fatigue. I felt really, really chill, and then I've done something dumb, and I immediately felt the price.
As we all do, it's like, oh, like this is my session, but like, yeah, and this is something.
It was only 1K. I didn't send half of it, but it was also just the fact that I was acutely aware after only 1K how deconditioned I am to that. And again, look, conditioning will ebb and flow. That's the point of training, and to sort of round out this point on training age and things is, social media has normalized the scale of these events. These events are to be respected. These events are to be taken seriously. And actually, in terms of injury mitigation, risk management, and most importantly, enjoying the process and the outcome and making the most of the money that you've invested into the entry fee and inevitably the second-hand bike on Facebook Marketplace or whatever it might be, you want to be able to give it the respect it deserves. And look, entertainment is key. I am a YouTuber at the end of the day. I have done a marathon with no training with Sam Cornforth, but I wasn't the one doing it with no training. But that video performed well.
You enabled him to do that.
I'm an enabler.
Potentially encouraged him to do that.
In fact, he was told he was doing it. Yeah. See, we had a different video planned. We couldn't do that video because of a brand relationship reason, actually. Basically, if he was seen to be reckless with alcohol for the beer mile that we had planned, it would have intervened in something he had going on. So we decided, right, Sam, you're running a marathon. So I enabled that, but it was very entertaining. I'll hold my hands up and say that I've contributed, but it was a great example of how much the distance needs to be respected. And Sam, as someone that had a really, really good training background and history in a CrossFit setting, but lacked that top-end sustainable aerobic capacity, we saw that reveal itself. So, I think we're both big proponents of respecting the distances and doing the hard yards and building the base. But the base doesn't necessarily just need to come from the thing that you're doing. It's actually, that is training history and training age. And I think that's what a lot of people lose sight of. Growing up playing sports is probably the biggest contributing factor to how much volume you can tolerate once you get to sort of late 20s, early 30s.
One final thing on that as well, just like something I say to my athletes as well, is you can only do something for the first time once. And so this like rush to do things, which I did. So I'm like, but again, this is me. I've done it the wrong way. So like, please listen to me. So I did it. I went from triathlon to half Ironman to full Ironman within like probably just over a year. But then I'd done an Ironman. And so the allure of like doing an Ironman was gone. Even though like, okay, I want to get faster and faster and faster, but you can only do something for the first time once. And then what you end up finding is you're chasing that thing. And then you end up doing something stupid like 100-mile ultra or like, beyond, because you're chasing the first time thing, because there is no high. Like,
you don't need to call me out like this on a podcast, Craig. This is ridiculous.
No, I was talking about myself, but obviously we do have similarities. But you end up like almost chasing the dragon of like, because that feeling, and I got to the point with Ironman, and I don't want this to sound, big-headed or whatever, but I got to the point with Ironman where I wasn't scared of the distance. Like I wasn't worried about finishing. I'm like, I know that I can, on a bit of notice, do an Ironman. Like, I got to a point in my life with that.
On that, what pisses me off as well is I think people are being discouraged from being scared of finishing. I think, again, it's not professional triathletes contributing to this narrative. It's sub-elite and decent age groupers that aren't as good as they want to be, saying that effectively, doing an Ironman in 13 and a half hours. Did you just walk the whole bloody thing? All this sort of narrative that I can't buy into at all. I am firmly of the opinion that the allure of an Ironman and crossing that finish line should scare the shit out of you. And there should be no part of you going into your first one thinking, I want to go sub 10, sub 12, sub 11, whatever it might be. You should be going to your first one thinking, I don't have any concept of how this can be done.
Yeah, and that was me with Keltman. That was my next, from Ironman, that was then my next step up, was getting that thing of like, oh my God. Well, first of all, when I got the place, that year we both got the place, end of 2019 it would have been. I remember getting the email and being like, oh, like I actually like, I'm not ready for that. And that is like scary in the moment, but like the feeling that you get a year, 6 months down the line when you achieve that thing is like so much greater than like, I want to do a sub 3 marathon. I've already done a marathon. Like it's still obviously achieving those things are great, but it's like that. I don't know if I can finish.
Yeah.
And then to not only finish and like do well and like really dedicate yourself, and it's the journey, not the destination, all that stuff. Like, but that like the journey to get to that point, which has then obviously led to like even bigger changes in my life. But that feeling of like truly not believing that you can do it, and it's not like it's not that I don't believe in myself. Like I don't have any issues with self-doubt. Like, but it's like, oh my God, from where I am right now to be able to finish that in I think 7 months notice that we get from getting a place to, and obviously it ended up getting delayed a year, but in that moment I was like, oh no, like I'm in trouble.
So whistle stop tour of your triathlon journey. So we got up to Loch Rannoch marathon. From there, how did things unfold?
Classic entry into triathlon was training for my first marathon. Got injured in the build-up because I was just like not following a plan, probably running all my runs at 4:59 pace because it looked good on Strava. Got injured, 6 weeks out, went to a physio. He was like, okay, you might be able to run the half in X weeks time, but you cannot run between now and then because you've got IT band syndrome or flare up or something. So I was like, okay, well, what can I do to train? He's like, buy a bike. So I'm like, cool. Facebook Marketplace, 500 quid. Boardman, can't remember the model, bike. Started cycling on that. Lived with my best mate at the time who cycled as well, and I used to slag him off for cycling and wearing lycra and shaving his legs. And I mean, fast forward now, that is me. But so started cycling and then did the half marathon, and then thought, I used to be able to swim at school. Can't be that hard. Looked up triathlons. Oh, what's this, like Olympic distance thing? It was in like a couple of months' time. Sign up. I was like, oh, better go to the pool and just like check I can still swim. Got to the pool, struggled through 25 meters and was like, oh no, I'm again in danger. And so that then, Olympic distance triathlon would have been July 2018. Finished that, got the buzz off it. On the train home from London, signed up to 70.3 Weymouth, which was in the September.
Yep.
Completed that, even though it was an Ironman 69.9 because the swim was halved. Or so whatever the distance was.
Right, okay, yeah. So, that happens quite regularly in Weymouth, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But the only reason I signed up to that one is because I just looked on the calendar and it was literally the only one in the UK.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
For that year, there was no other.
A lot of people would be doing that this year as well because they're all sold out.
Yeah. So yeah, did Weymouth 70.3 technically, but didn't. So that lived with me until I did a proper 70.3. Then what's the course of events from there? So that would have been end of 2019. Sorry, maybe this is all maybe 2019, and then I think from there, Weymouth September, I applied for Keltman. But if you remember, and well, you got I think some Fergus Crawley treatment, but for me, I had to enter the normal way, and the thing that
No, that was the second year. First year. Well, actually, both years I've been ballot selected.
Okay.
I won't have this hearsay, Craig.
Okay, hey, but I'm not here. I'm not.
Year one.
I'm just the
Year one, we had the experience.
So anyway, what I got told, I heard about this Keltman thing. I was like, oh, cool. Like, obviously, I'm getting into triathlon now. I'm really starting to like go all in. I'm getting obsessed in a good way. Hear about this Keltman thing. Started training with Edinburgh triathletes, who a lot of those guys obviously have associations with Keltman. And the way that we got told it worked was if you apply and you don't get in, you get more entries the next year. I do not know to this day if that's true, but it's.
I think it's now all formalised with the extra points system,
yeah,
isn't it? Yeah.
They've gone mainstream on us. But back when it was this rogue little event in the Highlands, it was like, and it was all whispers and like, oh yeah, like if you like, and you have to, and there's apparently like a monster on the hill that you have to fight when you know, all this sort of stuff. It was okay. I'm going to enter now so that when I want to do it in next year or 2 years time, I'll have built up like not getting in so that I've got more chance. That was how I believed the ballot worked. And then lo and behold, I actually didn't get in on the ballot, and then they must obviously then push out everyone that gets in, pay us. There must be, you know, whatever percentage of people either like, oh, no thanks, or they don't make the payment on time. I was on the wait list, and then like however long later got on the wait list spot, and I was like, fuck it, let's go. So, and I knew you were doing it. I think that was one of the reasons, I think, because you got in and I didn't, but then I got the wait list.
Yeah, I remember I was sat in a brunch place in Soho at the time, the day after a November event when I got the email. And yeah, I had the same feeling of, oh shit, this is different.
Yeah, and I remember thinking but because I knew you were already in, because you confirmed like a couple of weeks before, I thought, oh well, at least I know someone else that's doing it. Like we can like, you know, because not only Keltman is like physically challenging, it's a bloody like it's a full-time job, the admin, like figuring out all that sort of stuff, which I knew. I didn't know what I was getting myself in for, but I knew there was some level of that requirement as well. And so I thought, okay, like at least there's like two of us, like together we can kind of figure it out together. And so we got in, and I made the decision at that point, because I was still kind of trying to do this, I'm going to call it hybrid, but not your hybrid. My hybrid was trying to do triathlon and also live this party life. That was my version of doing two separate things that counteract each other, but both to a high level. That was me with triathlon and going out at the weekend, which do not mesh. And so at that point, we got that place at Keltman like late 2019.
Yeah.
The race in May, and I decided like, okay, from New Year, I need to lock in, and I'm not going to drink like I'm going to quit drinking for 6 months. For this race, like I need to know that when I stand on that start line, I've done everything that I can. I don't want to be sitting there going, oh my god, I maybe went out a bit too much, or oh, I missed that long ride because I was hungover. So I made that decision in that moment, and I mean, fast forward to now, I've not drank since. So that's obviously like a huge change in my life that happened all because of that decision, all because of getting that place in that ballot, all because I went for it, and obviously the way that it panned out, Keltman didn't happen that May. It happened the following May, which I think was a game changer for me. I like the kind of fitness that I gained through, because that's all, like my lockdown was literally like training, as you know. Like we did a lot of like turbo sessions together and challenges, you know, silly ones, and you know, Everesting, 1 hour max burpees. I joined you were doing, or you were meant to do a long one. 48 hours you were going to do on the turbo.
Yeah, I think I got to 36 because my crank length was wrong. I was on a borrowed bike and stuff, and it was pulling my hamstring off the bone.
I ended up doing 200 miles on the turbo that time, which, I mean, obviously I just went on whatever.
It's just terrible. It's just terrible. But again, base building.
Flat Zwift route is, like, you know, get the max
Training
distance.
Peaks Virtual has a 600-meter velodrome if you're interested.
I actually did a session on that the other day, just for shits and gigs, and yeah, partly to get my average speed up. Although I find the training, I don't know if I need to change my settings, but I find that like the speed on it is not very, like, it's a bit slow from what it should be, if that makes any sense.
I found it quicker, interestingly.
I mean,
The wind is real and everything, and the Train Peaks Virtual is very very real world once you're in it. Actually,
I'm just going off of, like, on my TT bike, I am quite aero. Like, if I go out for like an easy ride on my TT bike, like, my average would definitely be like 34 plus if I'm on flat roads. Whereas on TP Virtual around that velodrome, I did a session and the average only came in at like 32 and a half.
I can see your ego is bruised. I know the name of the person you can reach out to, but I'm not going to give it to you that you have to suffer through this.
I know you guys have a partnership with Training Peaks, so I'm not trying to dump on them too much. But I use Training Peaks, and I use Training Peaks Virtual because I was paying however much for Zwift when I'm at
that is one of the best, and it's a great software. At the end of the day,
can we just RIP to my Tron bike?
That I was going to say the Stockholm syndrome of, and the XP element does make the addictive personality, junky behaviour within difficult to pull away from. But it does save you 20 quid a month
from time to time. But yeah, it's not worth 20 quid. Like, I just yeah.